being a big Suits fan, you have her standing in front of you, but she's in this sort of royal capacity. After the first initial greeting, it wasn't, it was just me and her. It was just person to person. It wasn't, you're talking to someone of royalty.
On today's episode, we have Lynton Naicker, co-founder of Dops Rewards, a customer insight and analytics platform that is helping alcohol brands incentivize their customers' behavior. Lynton shares his advice on why it's important to start small, start fast, and if possible, start yesterday. And it's hard not to listen to it. Dops has achieved so much in such a short space of time. And if you think one startup was enough, Lynton actually has two, the other being SnapSlip, a digital receipting and analytics platform that actually put Lynton in front of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Yep, you heard it right, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I honestly can't believe it, a receipt put him in front of royalty. My name's Kieran Naidu, and you're listening to the Self Starters, a place where we learn how to turn our ideas into successful action. And because you're listening, you have no excuse not to get started right this moment. Actually, maybe listen to this first.
Lynton, hello. How are you, my friend?
Well, very well, thanks to yourself, Gary.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this episode and chat with you. You're something of a serial entrepreneur, so I know you have many startups in the works. The one that comes to mind is SnapSlip, but I believe there's another one called Dops. So really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today, and I think I'm going to learn a lot. I'm sure the listeners will learn a lot too. As we get started, I think we want to hear from you. Tell us a bit about your ventures and the startups you have going.
No, thanks. First and foremost, thanks for having me. Really, really cool podcast. Been hearing the episodes, the last two episodes, really cool. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, such a pleasure.
Yeah. So where do I start? I think it starts off back in 2017, 2018. Just sort of in the daily grind and sort of just had a bit of an epiphany, if I can say so myself. To sort of explore something different. Always sort of venture towards the entrepreneurial side of myself. Quite often in my younger days, trying to sell something to someone somehow. But it all stems, I think, from my granddad, who's been a serial entrepreneur throughout his life, and my dad, and just trying to see what I can do with myself. And had this fantastic idea of the first one, SnapSlip, because how that started, very, very funny story, was went to a store, bought a pair of pants, took it home, forgot about the pair of pants. You often when you buy something, you leave the receipt in the packet. I think I probably used the packet for something else, or the receipt got discarded. Tried on the pants and then realized, actually, maybe I put on a bit of weight. This is a bit too tight for me. I need to go and exchange them, and realized, hey, I don't have the receipt anymore. Get to the store, get into a massive argument with the clerk at the time, and sort of left there very frustrated and not knowing what's going to come of these pants, because I could not return them or do anything with them. And then sort of got me thinking onto, why do we still have this sort of archaic paper-based receipting process, and why isn't it digital? Because everything around us is transformed to this digital medium, yet we still handle these millions and millions of paper receipts. And then I sort of started exploring it a bit deeper and realized that, hey, there's a lot of data in that receipt. And a lot can tell you about that sort of person, who they are, what they are, just by the things that they buy. And that's lo and behold how SnapSlip came about.
Sorry, do you want to say
No, carry on.
I always find it fascinating when I speak to people who encounter a problem and then decide they're going to change the world to solve that problem. For me, it would have been like, I'm just never going to shop at that store again. But you're like, what? I disagree with how archaic the business practices of handing out these paper-based receipts. Let me do something about it. And you say that comes from your childhood and watching your grandfather and father being quite entrepreneurial themselves. And having one startup wasn't enough for you. Tell me about the second startup that you're working on, Dops.
So the second startup is quite cool. It's a bit more entertaining. It's quite fun as well. It's called Dops, or loosely translated to Digitally Operating Platforms and Solution, but colloquially known as Dops. And basically, it's a rewards incentive platform for the alcohol industry, which is the more you drink, the more you get rewarded. But there's an underlying tone of data as well involved in this startup. So it's doing fantastically well. But how that started is I was sort of sitting at a bar, and it got me thinking, and I sort of zoned out for a bit. And I thought to myself, how do you tell who's drinking your beer? Or how do you tell who's drinking your brand? And there's this massive disconnect between the end consumer, which is you and I sitting at that bar or pub, drinking that brand, and the brand itself. So what we managed to do is, one, create this sort of really cool incentive gamified platform where consumers such as you and I goes to our local bar, and it sort of persuades us to buy into that brand because it has this cool game and there's incentive behind it. And we sort of explored that avenue to say, but how do we become more responsible? So the incentives we started off giving is Uber vouchers, so people get home safely and aren't drinking and driving, and a whole list of other vouchers that really resonate with the end user. But the underlying tone is, how do we tell who's drinking that brand? How do we tell what their age is, what their demographic is, and start painting a picture to tell you, okay, this is your user, Kiran. He's between the ages of 30 and 35. He drinks at this bar on a Monday to Friday. He drinks at this bar on the weekend. This is his preferred drink. This is his frequency. And we really started mapping out these journeys of people in regards to what they drink, where they drink, and what they may drink next, and how can we be that brand or surface as that brand for them to sort of hone into instead of their usual sort of drinking brand.
That's incredible. Let me tell you, I have a couple of friends who definitely they definitely will benefit from the gamification of drinking. And again, it's similar to what you mentioned with SnapSlip. It's a case of you're doing an everyday activity, but you're thinking about it in a very different way. How does Dops then work? How does a consumer interface with it?
So there's different elements that we actually run. So Dops 1.0 being the very first version and platform out there is you go to a bar, and we primarily focused on bars and pubs and restaurants, and you would see some sort of advertising, or the waiter would be one of our ambassadors to say, hey, listen, we're running a special on a certain beer, a beer brand. If you buy onto it, you scan my QR. It takes you to this platform, this web-based platform. You play this really cool interactive game, and you could win anything from free beer all the way to Uber vouchers, Spotify vouchers. We did F1 concert tickets. Like the prizes were, anything you can imagine under the roof. And it really got that consumer quite engaged. It got them quite excited. They'd play a cool game of chance, but it's an interactive puzzle. And then they would be rewarded instantly. So it wasn't your sort of traditional scratch card, take a coin, scratch the card, or SMS some number or some code to a number, and know after like 30 days if you won something or not. It's literally sitting at the bar, you're going to win something. So that was quite a cool element. And we did it for really big campaigns. We did it for Heineken, UEFA Champions League, the Formula One, a lot of the Distel brands, and we actually moved. Still do beer, but moved from beer to spirits and shooters as well, and it was fantastic because the take up was incredible. I think people miss that sort of I'm here, I'm drinking, but I have an element of winning something. It's quite exciting, and we noticed that the atmosphere picked up quite a bit when we ran our sort of platform in these sort of bars, restaurants, and pubs.
And no, I can imagine, especially when the drinks are flowing. You give someone a
Absolutely.
chance to win something. It's it's like Santa has entered the pub. And tell me, so how do your corporate customers, how do they get the data? Is whilst I'm playing this game, do I have to enter some details about myself? How does it work on that side?
Absolutely. First and foremost, we got to know that you're over the age of 18. That's one of the strictest requirements
Have to
of
promote responsible drinking, Lynton. Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the first and foremost, most important requirement into entering the platform. We then take things like your name and some of your contact details. Reason being is we also need to know who we send these vouchers to. So we usually send them twofold, so via SMS and via email. And we make it so easy for the end user. It's literally an email or SMS with an hyperlink. Click on the hyperlink and it will preload that voucher to your Uber account, Spotify account, or whatever other medium of vouchers that we sent out, so that you as an end user don't have to do much. All you have to do is just open up that email or SMS and you will get that incentive immediately. But by taking in those fields, we're able to then paint a story with a lot of other things such as timestamps, geolocation, and we're able to tell the brand, this is your consumer, but it's not a sort of I want to be, sending you marketing spam or advertising. That's totally what we're against. But it's more to say, this is Kieran. This is what he likes. Let's give him more of what he likes instead of trying to push down a product that he's not interested in. And we're really trying to make the brand more centric to the individual.
And I'm jumping ahead here, but the concept is a really cool one. Ultimately, how do you envision that the corporates can actually target a customer like me? So with this data, so they know that, okay, from Monday to Friday, Kieran likes drinking strawberry daiquiris, and on Saturday and Sunday he really turns it up and goes to a mojito. I don't drink, so you can clearly see I'm naming all the worst drinks. But how will a big brand like a Heineken then target me in future? Have you given thought to that?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've actually put it into practice. It's you as much as Kieran is an individual, there's a lot of individuals with the same preference and taste, and then we're able to paint this picture to say, look, for instance, in this bar A in Santon, they actually don't really like beer. They're more on the cider level, and you're actually a demographic that you thought was male between the ages of 30 and 40 drinking, your very heavy beers, but it's actually a female demographic that dominates this bar, and the ages are between 25 and 35, and they're more inclined in drinking ciders, and it actually happens between Tuesday and Friday. And we can start then sort of looking at the brand and telling the brand, well, actually, you need to switch your advertising in that particular bar to this demographic. And you need to start stocking up this particular bar with this product instead of product B, which is your heavy beer, but rather your ciders, because that's what's in demand. And we really start painting this holistic picture of where the brand thought they should be in, and to us where the brand actually should be and who they should be selling to and what the demographic is in that specific regional bar or restaurant. And that's information that the brands generally don't have, and we're just sort of showing them and guiding them to say, listen, you know your brand very, very well, but do you know your customer as well as your brand? But here's a bit of information or data that'll help you understand your customer, but definitely not in the sense of I'm going to spam you with 50 emails today, which we know is unreceptive. It's more cater for your individual, and your individual will really be there for you.
I think that's such a great idea. I think big brands have a good sense of, at a high level, how their products are being consumed. So, a company will know, okay, Gauteng is mainly beer and thereafter cider. But as you've mentioned, there will be nodes within the province where cider is the dominant drink, and then specifically at a bar level, getting it down to that level, I think is invaluable. And so, have you seen quite a bit of interest from the big brands? How well received has your startup and your idea been?
Well, it's super strange, and I'd like to share a story with you. It was so we ran our first pilot. Once again, this was like a sticky tape platform. We always call it the sticky tape platform because we just built a platform super quickly just to get it out there in the market. And it didn't have all the bells and whistles, and it was a bit clunky, and it had a lot of bugs. But we said we got to get something out there. Let's test the market. If it's well received, then we can go into this full blown exploratory development process. And we did it in one of the local bars in Santon, and we didn't have our QR technology at that point in time, so it was very, very clunky. We printed these business cards with redemption codes. So you bought like 2 drinks, you get this card, you redeem this card, and it gives you a free drink, and you had to show the waiter this little unlock code, and it was really, really messy. But for us, it was something to pilot and get it out there and see if it works. And coincidentally, we ran it on the first night. And it was just me and the 2 co-founders, and we were sitting at this bar, and we're approaching everyone, and we're saying, guys, this is what can happen. Buy 2 of these drinks, and you get 1 for free. All you have to do is, fill in this code, fill in this detail on this sort of website, and we'll give you an unlock code that you give to the waiter. And coincidentally, one of the people sitting at that bar that we sort of pitched to, and it was very, very strange because we were so tired. It was, end of the innings, end of the night. We were ready to pack up, and there was one guy sitting at the bar, and we said, you know what, let's just end the night off. Let's approach him. Let's speak to him. And he did it. And then after about 10 minutes or so, he came up to us and he's like, listen, I actually work for Heineken. I want to see you in my office on Monday morning. This has legs, something we've never seen before. To cut a long story short, we outsold the products that they've given us at the bar, and they gave us the really, really crappy products that they couldn't sell, just to see if this would work. And we outsold kegs that were lying there for the last 6 months. And the bar owner actually came to us, and we ran this as a free trial. He was like, listen, I don't know what you guys did, but whatever you did was amazing, because we were sitting with this product and it never sold. And you guys came in and sold the stuff. It's crazy.
So it speaks to the adage, and maybe alcohol brands won't appreciate me for saying this, but once you've had enough drinks, it all tastes the same. And if you're going to give me something free to drink it, I'm going to buy it.
Absolutely.
That's an incredible story. I'd love to hear more then about how you guys are feeling in that moment. So you've inadvertently, just by saying, let's speak to one extra person and try and sell our idea, you speak to someone from Heineken. So how are you feeling after being told, okay, let's meet on Monday morning? What's going through your mind and your founders' minds, and how did that meeting go?
At this point, we were running off fumes, because I think we sort of developed this platform to the stage where we said, listen, we can do more, but we need to get this out there. And when he approached us and said, listen, I'm from Heineken, we were all a bit stunned, but it never really registered at that point. We're like, okay, yeah, Heineken, and he's like, no, I want to see you on Monday morning. And then it hit us, and we're like, what? Because we had this roadmap to say, like, okay, it's going to take us about 4 to 6 months till we get some pilot running, and we'll explore it in different bars in different areas, and then we'll go to the big sort of brands and say, guys, listen, this is what we have. We never expected that traction. And then Monday morning, 3 of us, not knowing what the hell's going on, sitting in this office, trying to pitch our hearts out to the corporate, and the guy's like, listen, we don't do pilots here. Quote, you send us the quote, 2 weeks time, we'll have you up and running. We are like, still like in awe. Is this happening? Sort of pinch me, slap me now. I need to know if I'm dreaming or not. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we actually ran our first promotion.
And how long ago was this, Lynton?
This was pre-COVID, 2019. I think we were sort of fist bumping because we were sitting in December, and we got this call from Heineken to say, "Listen, guys, we want you to do UEFA Champions League." And we're like, whoa, because we're all football fans at heart, and we're like, Champions League, that's massive, that's huge. And they were like, yeah, we want you to roll it out nationwide. And we're like, what? Like, we've done it in a couple of bars in Gauteng, nationwide. Okay, we'll step up to the plate. And we were super excited. And then I went off to the UK to actually promote Snapslip and Dops at the time. On behalf of the United Kingdom's Global Entrepreneurship Program. And we had this really cool initiative, and we had a lot of events there. And we were still super excited, and I spoke to a lot of people there, and they were like, wow, you guys got Champions League, and you're only like 3 or 4 months old. And we're like, yeah, we also don't believe it. And then we came back, and the world changed. And it sort of put a damper on our plans and growth, because we had the total alcohol ban, and that hurt us quite a bit. And the sort of three of us were sitting on a WhatsApp call, because we couldn't even see each other at this point, because it was a complete lockdown. And we're like, what do we do now? Like, what's next? What happens? Because our whole business model is on alcohol, and alcohol is banned. And we sort of sat there for like 2 weeks, not knowing what to do. And then we got this really, really cool opportunity that we did pro bono, sort of to help the community out. And someone said, listen, you guys build a lot of customer tracking tools and data sets that you pull from this customer tracking platform. Can you apply this to a COVID vaccine trial? We said, okay, that's something we never ever thought of, but let's try it. And sort of use the underlying technology of tracking customers to now tracking patients that have been on, or who've received the first vaccine under the COVID vaccine trial. And this was back in the sort of mid 2020, when the vaccines was sort of coming into tuition, but the trials actually. And we augmented the tech a bit. It changed a little, but it still used the underlying characteristics of what we were doing. And we ran this trial for the for the university who was actually running this COVID vaccine with, I think, about, call it 200 or 300 vaccine candidates. And it was strange, because it's something we've never done before. But it showed you that the framework and the rails were there, and that we could apply it to this. And we hope we actually made a difference, because it was the ability for doctors and researchers to actually see the tracking of these patients from taking either the vaccine or the placebo. We had no clue at the time, to actually seeing them like in 6 to 8 weeks. Do they have symptoms? And logging it on our platform. And then we were able to give them these reports to say, listen, these are your sort of patients that are on the trial. This is what they're feeling. This is what's agreeing to them. This is what's not agreeing to them. And sort of help them fast track that sort of vaccine research trial to a state where they actually had tangible data, and they didn't have someone writing it on a piece of paper and inputting it to some computer later. And we all know things get lost, and things may fall due to human error, but we actually hoped we made a difference. And then as our good president sort of eased the alcohol ban, we were back in business and back to doing what we do best, and that is alcohol.
So Dops wasn't active when people were brewing pineapple beer. Eh? There was no buy one get one free.
No, unfortunately not. I think we were too scared to see what happens to those people after a few pineapple beers.
And talk to me about where you are now. So as lockdown has eased and life has, fingers crossed, almost got back to normal, fifth wave dependent. Where's Dops today?
So funny, we still have get heart palpitations and get super nervous when they announce a family meeting, because we're on the end of it saying, please don't ban alcohol again, please don't ban alcohol again. But we did something really, really cool in December. We'd like to think we're the first company that did it, definitely in South Africa. We're hoping to be the first in the world, but you never know what goes around. But from our research, we seem to be the first. We did the first ever interactive TV ad, live TV ad. So you as a consumer sitting on your couch, you see this really cool TV ad for Hunter's Extreme Energy. So one of Distell's very famous cider brands. And there's a little QR code on the bottom right of it. So you whip out your phone, open up your camera, point it at this, and it navigates you to this website. And you as a consumer don't have to leave your couch. So you're sitting on your couch, you whip out your phone, scan the QR, takes you to this website, enter in a couple of details, and you play this really, really cool interactive game of chance. And within that game of chance, you win really, really amazing vouchers, one of the things being Spotify. So it tied into the whole theme of the brand, which is very music focused. And, it then redirects you to Takealot to buy the brand. So what we were able to do there is to engage with the consumer. So we first and foremost, we could tell you who's watching your TV ad, which no one could do at this point in time. Secondly, we could then get your consumer excited about your brand while sitting on his couch, and he doesn't even have to leave his couch because he's redirected to Takealot and gets a little voucher there as well to purchase the brand. So just showing you the power of the platform, but also giving you, you as a consumer, the convenience at your fingertips that you don't even have to leave your house to interact with that particular brand.
That is a very, very cool idea that you guys have rolled out, because one of the issues with TV, right? It's very hit and hope from an advertising perspective. As a big corporate, you plow money into TV ads, hoping that the viewership will be there and will be within your demographic, but there's no way of knowing. And that's why platforms and streaming platforms have done exceptionally well. From a YouTube perspective, YouTube can tell me the types of people who are watching my ads and who are clicking on it. So you get an instant sense of, okay, these are the people that are watching and who fall within my demographic, and the ones who are more susceptible to my sorts of advertising campaigns. You guys have managed to do that for TV, which is a very, very impressive feat. And and it's something that I think most corporates have been struggling with for the longest time, because you can't stop advertising on TV. But it's so hard to know whether you're just putting your money into a black hole or if it's really having an impact. So tell me about the results of that, if you can. I'm sure Distell must have been over the moon when they started getting the data around how many of their potential customers were actually interacting with the ad.
No, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, first and foremost is that it gave them a view of exactly who it is. So they could see that Kiran Naidu, between the ages of 30 and 35, is watching my ad at 7 p.m. And he's interacted with it. He's actually played the game. He's won something out of it, and we could actually track how far down the line you go through the process. And I think that was a big win for them. We initially said, as the founders said, listen, we're probably predicting about 200 people, that will scan. It's something totally new. The ad runs for about 45 seconds or less. It takes time for someone to register to go and take up their phone and open up their camera. And, people might just be over it and say, oh, that's too much effort. I'm sitting on my couch. I can't give you the exact numbers, but it was in the high thousands. So way, close to the upper quartiles of tens of thousands, but somewhere around there. Which we looked at this and were like, after the first few days, I spoke to the CTO, the co-founder, that's the CTO, Yolan, and I was like, Yolan, is there something wrong with the results, the stats? Is it like something's going on here? Because I don't trust this number. And he's like, listen, I was also shocked. I checked it about 3 or 4 times. It's legit. this is legit people. So whatever we did, we made an impact. People are excited, and it just went from strength to strength. And at the end of it, we were like, okay, we didn't expect this. Tremendous success. But let's start depicting those stories and seeing what we can do with it. But one of the big things is, I think we realized from a consumer engagement perspective, they love the game. It was a really cool puzzle / game of chance. And they love that interactive engagement possibility. And sort of that, some of the feedback we got is, you're sitting on your couch, unexpectedly you scan this QR, it takes you to this website, you start playing this game, and all of a sudden your heart starts racing, because you're gonna win a prize, but it sort of keeps you and holds you in anticipation for a couple of seconds, and then it releases your prize. And they were like, wow, I never expected that on sitting on my couch. It actually sort of upped the ante of what's the next ad that's going to do something cool like this.
Did you have quite a high completion rate of people who click through and actually follow the process? And I mean, the game is part and parcel of that, right?
Absolutely. We had an 85% completion rate, which is quite phenomenal for something that's never been done before.
That's very, very high. I mean, it's Lynton, well done to you and the team. It's an excellent concept, right?
I appreciate that.
From Distel's, I'm glad. I mean, I'm very unqualified in my in what I say, but I as a consumer, I think it's an excellent concept. And as a corporate, I would be, I'd be smiling from ear to ear, because it costs you nothing above the cost of your advert, right? That's the major expense. I've just added another element to further interact with my audience, almost free of charge, right? It's obviously it's the cost they pay to you, but that's small in comparison to the cost of a full media campaign.
Absolutely,
it's brilliant. And where did you guys get the idea from? Was it watching an episode of Black Mirror, or what was it?
It was actually strange, because we were sitting in a room, so sort of we had our like think tank session, and we were like, it got really silly at one point, because we were like, okay, what can we put our QR technology on? Like, like we've put it on beer bottles, we put it on cards, we put it on coasters, we put it on, name it, we put it on, and we were like, and we had this massive TV screen in front of us, and we're like, why can't we put it on the TV? Like, and Nishal and Yolan, the other two co-founders, were like, what do you mean put it on the TV? Like, what are we trying to promote TVs now? So like, you go to your Hirsch, and there's a QR code, and you play a game and you win a free TV. I was like, no, in the actual TV while something's broadcasting. And they're like, nah, yeah, well, that's got some legs. Let's explore it more. And I think it came about that. But it was also like, you're sitting on your couch, you're on your phone. When the ads come on, you're like sort of paying attention maybe 20% of the time, because you either fast forward through the ads, or you skip the ads, or you're doing something while the ads are playing, or you're checking your messages, you're checking your Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. But how do you engage that person? How do you actually make them watch your ad? Because a lot of these liquor companies and companies in a whole spend a hell of a lot of money on ads. And some of these ads are very, very beautifully curated. But how do you sort of take it to the next step where you actually get your audience actively involved in your ad? And that's part and parcel where sort of the silly idea of, let's throw a QR ad on the TV, but how do we derive value from that? And I think that's a lot of our thinking is, cool idea, cool concept, but what's the underlying value that we can sort of attain from that?
And talk me through the pitch process for this. Was Distel the first client you went to with it and they jump on it, or was it quite a hard sell until you managed to get this on an ad?
Actually, we thought it would be a hard sell. We made a mock-up of an ad. We just took an ad. We made a very, very cool mock-up, and we put out our technology on there, our QR technology on there. We designed a very, very basic website and game, and we pitched it to them. And we showed it to them, and we had this whole pack. So we first did the ad, and we got the guys, gave the guys the opportunity to scan the ad and go through the game and see if they won something. And the SMS came through immediately. And At this point, after the demo, we had this whole pack of information to say, listen, guys, this is why you need to do it. This is the research we've run. This is the data points, etc., etc. And we didn't get to that because after the guys ran the demo and they played the demo, they were like, listen, we've got an ad in the pipeline that's probably going to surface in a month or 6 weeks' time. Can you be ready? And we're like, but we've got like 20 more slides to go through. And they're like, no. You're not going through the slides. We want to be the first to try this out. Give us the opportunity. And we're like, okay, cool, let's do this. And 6 weeks later, by hook or crook, we made it through and we got it on all the SABC channels and DSTV channels as well.
And you know, I'm not even surprised when it's a great idea in front of the right people. You know, it will fly. And how did you get in front of Distell? Was it a thing of because you'd got in front of Heineken, it just gave you that much more leverage to go to other competitors in the market and be like, listen, we've spoken to Heineken, we have a lot of credibility behind us. Was it that, or how did you manage to get into contact with Distell?
No, absolutely. It was definitely that. I think things fell in our favor, which was quite cool because we met the right people at the right time. Not in the context of pitching to them, but just being out in a social networking perspective. At you know, sort of a drinks evening, but geared at startups and pitching and stuff like that. And we just happened to bump into the right people at the right time who worked at Distell and said, listen, we'll put you in contact with the right people. But absolutely, the credibility of having a major international brand like Heineken behind you or backing you was, you know, the social engagement got us the foot in the door, and this sort of helped us to ease that conversation and actually get the guys excited, because once they see Heineken, they're like, listen, if they trust you, why shouldn't we trust you? I mean, if you're dealing with a big brand such as them and you're running these massive campaigns, what are we missing out on? Let's get this started. Let's get the ball rolling.
And what's your hopes for 2022? What's down the pipeline? That's one part. And then, you know, when you guys started this, what was your ultimate vision? So maybe tell me about 2022 first, and we'll go to the vision after that.
Sure, no, absolutely. So when we started it, the ultimate vision was free beer. How many free beers can we get now? The vision was, let's create something that gets people like us excited again. It gets us, you know, really, really excited to go out and play these sort of interactive games and paint out these customer journeys. What's in store for 2022? We really want to explore this advertising medium more in depth. We're looking at doing another advert very, very soon, but making it a lot more intricate, a lot more gamified in this sort of quest of games, which is really, really cool. But also looking at NFTs. How can we sort of enter an element of NFTs or an aspect of an NFT into what we're doing? I think we're always trying to evolve and make look at what's out there and how can we adapt our tech to that to stay current, to stay hip, to stay in that, you know, niche pop culture that gets everyone excited. And I think NFTs are the next logical step. And how do we create some really exclusive content for a particular brand, but on that platform?
And would it be a case of I use the QR code and I stand a chance of winning an NFT, or is it a case of you curate a set of digital art for a brand? What's the thinking around NFTs, or is it still at an exploratory phase?
A bit of both, actually. So we're doing this really cool, or trying to do this really cool campaign with another emerging client where we're creating this really, really bespoke digital artwork with local artists. But on the back of that digital artwork, it enables you as the owner or part owner of that, you get access to really, really exclusive events. You get really cool merchandise that's bespoke to you that no one else can get just because you're a part or part owner of this NFT, but also creating that NFT that you stand a chance to win when you play one of our interactive games that'll allow you to, you know, enter exclusive events, get access to exclusive merchandise. So very much twofold. The artwork is really exciting, working with these local artists, creating something that's really bespoke, but in the sense of being truly sort of South African, very proudly South African, but something that also resonates with the sort of 2022 pop culture.
That's incredible. And tell me about the future, right? 5 to 10 years out. That's a long horizon. But what are your hopes and dreams? Where do you see Dops being in that time frame?
Look, we want to be a sort of bigger company. We want to really employ really young, talented people that have the same mindset and thinking as us. We want to be, I know it's cliche, but we want to have that sort of Google, Apple culture where, one of the big advocates or one of the big things I've been an advocate is nap time. Let's grab a 30-minute nap during your workday, because that's the culture that we want to embrace. That really cool, innovative startup culture that doesn't conform to a suit and tie sort of regime, but come in, do what you need to do, but have a balanced lifestyle with that as well. But I think the biggest thing that we want to do is leave a legacy. We want to be known as the guys that started off doing this, but really pioneered the sort of way for young individuals to think, one, but also came out with those really cool, innovative things. We want to be the first to do the interactive TV ads. We're going to be the first to have elements of other tech that's involved in this, but really make an exciting company that really gets brands to engage with customers.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are taking all the steps into the future. It's, I can imagine over time I guess the products you put out there will get closer and closer towards the augmented and virtual reality space that we find ourselves in. And I think for me, what's also great is, this isn't something that you started doing straight out of school. You had a job prior to this, and you had a great idea and you've built it out. Maybe let's take a couple of steps back, because again, the podcast Self Starters, it's about people who turn ideas into action, and I want to really understand from the point where you had this idea with your two co-founders. How did you go about actually creating this? Were all three of you full-time from the get-go? Were some of you working and then over time decided to become full-time on this project? What were some of the practicalities around how Dops was built out?
So we definitely weren't all full-time in this. We actually all had day jobs at the time. So we all worked at Absa Capital together, which is how we actually met in high school. So we all knew each other from high school, made the transition to Joburg, worked in the same company together, very much hectically corporate, suit and tie sort of vibes, very, very strict. And we'd often have coffee or lunch together, and it'd say, listen, like, we're tired. We're tired of this 9 to 5 daily grind. And it actually got to a point where we'd just sit there and talk about how we'd be so tired of working. And one day we said, let's do something about it. Baby steps. I'm not saying hand in your letter of resignation the next day, but let's think about it. Let's have a think tank. Let's see if we can come up with any ideas. And I think I was sitting at my desk the one day, and I was like, I really like drinking, but what's the incentive behind me going and having a drink? There's nothing. It's there's nothing out there. And I think just having that sort of data mindset of how to drive value from it. And then we came up with the idea of Dops. And we still very much had our day jobs. This was a sort of after work thing that we did. We'd actually siphon free Wi-Fi off the gym. And when the gym closed, we'd sit in the parking lot in one of the cars, and we'd park really close to the gym so that we'd still get that free Wi-Fi. And straight after work, so from 6 p.m. onwards, we'd literally all have some sort of dinner in the gym or somewhere where that gave us free Wi-Fi, and we'd work on this idea all the way till like 1 in the morning, and then back again to work. And then sort of after work, this would be our drive to like get us through the day, to know that we're working on this. But definitely not something where we said, we've got this idea, tomorrow we're resigning. It took us quite a bit of time before we all felt comfortable enough to say, listen, we're able to pull the trigger. Let's fully invest our time in this. And if anyone asks me an advice on a startup, don't quit your day job, because it just adds another element of pressure and uncertainty. Keep your day job running, do what you need to do, but after hours, grind super hard on your startup, and it'll alleviate a lot of pressure, especially the financial pressure of you thinking of, how do I put food on the table? How do I pay the rent, when actually you've got that stable income coming in, but you're able to give you that freedom to explore after hours on how to develop something.
How long since the inception of the idea did it take before you said, enough of the corporate, I need to spend all 24 hours of a day thinking about Dops?
Around 7 months. So it took about 7 months, which I think is quick.
That is quick, yeah.
Yeah, I would actually think it takes between 6 to 12 months, but it took us about 7 months.
Especially when you work at a bank, getting a discount on mortgage rates is always something hard to leave behind.
Absolutely, stable paycheck is something hard to leave behind.
It's a big thing. And Lynton, you studied economics and supply chain management, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So something.
So my question is, so then how does someone with that background, sit here and talk to me about QR codes and, going into NFTs? Was someone in your team a tech expert, or is it something that you guys have learned as the idea has been built?
Bit of both, actually. When I started at Ep4 Capital, I started in their graduate program, and it was Barclays back then. And it was, I watched Wolf of Wall Street just before I got this job, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to become this trader. I want to start trading. And got into Ep4 Capital and realized it's nothing like Wolf of Wall Street. Let me tell you, it's not even 1/10 like Wolf of Wall Street. It's not that exciting at all. And then I said, listen, there was a data team in Ep4 Capital that worked with a lot of these cool, innovative ideas and was behind it. And I sort of got into that team. And that's really what sparked my interest into tech. Very, very different to what I studied. Not anything remotely close. And it also helped that Yolan, the CTO, is an actuary by degree or sort of his credentials, but he's a self-taught developer. So I think with my sort of background in that data team, it gave me a bit of solutioning and the ability to think of how does a system or platform work, and then paired with Yolan being the developer, it just sort of brought into context of how we could take an idea that I would really punt and throw into him, and he would look in the background and say, listen, okay, this is how we can actually build it out.
And then talk to me also about the games that you guys are creating. So the gamification aspect, the understanding of your customer segments, and running the data insights. Again, self-taught. For people aspiring to be like you guys, I think one of the most daunting things that you guys have managed to do right is a lot of the time people have ideas, and the moment it comes to, well, it would be good as an app or utilizing some sort of technology, people shy away from it because they have no understanding or concept of how they would develop something. Maybe practically, how did you guys short circuit some of those things? Because you guys have a bit of the background, but what were some of the learnings that you guys got along the way?
I think the biggest thing is for us, everything's done in-house. So we don't outsource any dev at all, which is very hard to do, extremely hard to do unless you have that skill set. I think we are fortunate in the fact that one of the founders was a self-taught developer. The biggest lesson that we learned is don't try and make the fully polished product until you tested it out yet. So come up with that sticky tape solution. It's not going to look pretty. It's not going to look premium. It's not going to look what you want it to be, but it'll be a test or line in the sand to see that actually their idea works or it doesn't. Because you get a lot of people that would sit there with an idea and build it out to the nth degree. And by the time they complete that 6-month development, the world's changed and your idea is not relevant enough, or it's not received as well as you thought it would be. So, come out with that, whether it's a sort of solution to an idea that you have, come out with something that's very quick and fast to make. And it doesn't have to be, app-based or web-based. It could be something as simple as you just standing there doing something. For instance, for us was we didn't have the QR technology at first. We literally went to Minuteman Press, which is our local printers, and printed codes on business cards. And when the business cards ran out, we wrote them on napkins or serviettes, and we started handing those out to people. So it was not a glamorous solution. It was not a pretty solution, but it gave us indication of, yes, this actually works. There's some legs in the ground. There's demand for it. Now let's go and build the ideal solution. And I think that saves a lot of people time and money, because development is super expensive.
And how long was it from that initial idea to your first sticky tape or MVP? Where you were writing it down on business cards and napkins. What was the time period between that?
3 weeks.
So that's a quick turnaround.
No, we pushed aggressively, like super aggressively from the first time that we explored the idea, the first day that we said, listen, this is what we're going to do. We actually were building another platform at that time, and I sort of derailed the whole team. And I was like, listen, guys, I know you spent the last 6 weeks building on something. I'm not saying throw it away, but put it on pause, because I think this has more legs. And fortunately it did. Otherwise, I would be the one with sort of egg on my face.
and was it just a case of, it was more gut feel? You just knew. And I guess, sometimes an idea, it comes almost fully formed in your head, and you can just see the potential.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the sort of benchmarks that I use is my dad, because my dad is like super old school, super stringent. And when I had the conversation with him, and normally when I speak to him about ideas, he's like, maybe you should focus on work, and that's his way of saying, yeah, your idea is crap. and
I expect nothing less from a good Indian father.
Absolutely. And when I told him about this idea, he was like, actually, I think you've got something there. Explore it. And I was like, okay, there's my hardest critic. If he thinks there's something there, there's definitely something there. But yeah, it's that self-validation, because you as a sort of entrepreneur, or you as an individual, any idea that you think of, it's sort of like your child, and no one can fault you on it, when actually there may be a whole lot of sort of flaws or holes in that idea. And that's why I always tell people, validate your idea. Just get it out there, see if people are receptive to it before you start throwing money at it.
I think you're spot on. Too often people try and perfect the idea before anyone has seen it. And the truth of the matter is, if you're building something that's not for yourself, people will engage with it in ways you could never, ever have dreamed of. So the more you can actually get a bit of that runtime, and see how it works out, I guess, in a live environment, the better. Now, Lynton, I'm thoroughly impressed by the turnaround time, 3 weeks. Tell me, are you someone who suffers from imposter syndrome or feeling less than, and wondering that, maybe I'm not qualified enough for the idea I'm bringing out there? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like, once you have an idea, you tackle it aggressively, and you don't feel a sense of fear of, this is not working. It's a test, and if it doesn't work, it's on to the next idea. Where do you almost fit on that spectrum of feeling nervous and almost imposterish to giving it a full go and saying failure is part of the game, and I learn from it?
No, absolutely. I think we have this methodology of fail fast. We actually encourage failure because it gives you an opportunity to learn from it. And some of our greatest ideas have come from failure. And if we hadn't had that opportunity fail, we wouldn't have that opportunity to grow. But I think everything is still an imposter. I'll use it loosely, imposter syndrome. But whereas you've got to fake it till you make it, because if you don't, and you don't have that confidence, especially that confidence and passion, I promise you, 9 times out of 10, it will show through that pitch. If you go up there, stand and pitch to a big corporate all jittery, they will literally close the door on you as soon as you walk in. So you've got to sort of go to them and say, listen, we've done this, or we know it, we know our solution, or we're confident in our solution. It's just you giving us the opportunity to show you how confident we are in our solution or our idea or our innovation. And it stems to that: believe in your idea, be passionate about your idea, but also have the ability to learn from any failures or mistakes that you make and take in criticism. Because I think often people don't take in criticism as constructive. They take it more as being destructive. But a lot of the times, constructive criticism really, really helps you. And it's helped us. Yes, you want to strangle that person at the end of the line that says, your idea is absolutely crap, or you need to change this. But constructive criticism for us is a big one.
And there's a mentality to being an entrepreneur, being a self-starter, and the thing I'm seeing that's most in common is that almost, I think everyone has some sense of fear of failure, but it's almost how you reframe it and how you look for the positives and how you learn from it. For someone like me, even just this podcast, it's taken a long time to get the ball rolling. I think when I was on Survivor, I was talking to people about starting a podcast, which was almost 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago now. And I've sat and refined until I found something that I was comfortable to talk about, which, the more I listen to these stories, the more I'm like, it was silly. You just start and you refine. And even if your audience is one person, it's going to grow and change inevitably. So it doesn't matter. You rather get it started and start early. And everyone's so busy with their life. If you fail, it means nothing to the next person, right? So there really is nothing holding you back. And where do you get that from? Because it's a very admirable trait to have.
Once again, I really think it's my dad and granddad. Looking at them, and like as a kid, you see how they sort of grinded. They and it wasn't easy for them. I think it's much easier for us now because we have the technology. We have the ability to do anything and everything from a cell phone, which back in their day they didn't. They had to wait weeks or days for answers, whereas we can get it instantly. If you look at today's times, you could set up a payment portal in a day from a third outsourced third party, whereas back then they were the payment source, right? So they had to literally knock on doors and promote their product or whatever it was that they were trying to do. And it's that grind of saying, yes, some days are good and some days are bad, and when you're at your lowest lows, it sucks. But you're in it to win it. You're in it for the long game. It's you're not going to become this super cool Elon Musk in a 48-hour period. But I think the turning point for me and what kept me going is, don't think about the money. Don't think about sort of the flashy lifestyle. Think of how you can go to bed on a Sunday, not saying, oh no, I've got work on a Monday, but go to bed on a Sunday saying, okay, yeah, I'm excited. Tomorrow's Monday, start of the new week, and we've got a whole lot of things lined up. And that for me is the motivation of how just, say, listen, I'm not sitting at a desk job that, yes, I love doing what I'm doing, but I don't love working for the person that I'm working for, the institution. But actually, I'm working for myself, and I'm empowering myself, and I'm helping myself sort of get to where I want to be. And how do I sort of cultivate that excitement?
And, as someone who clearly has always been this action-oriented person, and you've learned a lot from your family, what's your first memory of creating something from scratch? Like having this idea and then turning it into something.
Definitely was SnapSlip, and apps were the thing of at the time. I guess they still are, but they weren't as exciting as they were back then. Sort of 2016, 2017. So when we created that first super clunky app or version of SnapSlip, and I was playing with it, and we got this cool store in Sandton City to run a trial for us. And I sat there and I said, okay, let me buy something and see if it works. It was actually super exciting one, but also nervous to see, actually, will this work? We're going live with this thing tomorrow. Is it gonna like lose the receipt somewhere in the cloud, and we're gonna get a whole lot of people that are like, where's my receipt? You said that I'm gonna get my receipt instantly. How can I trust this? Give me the paper. It was definitely that was a big sort of highlight for me, is sharing something that you built with a whole lot of people and actually seeing how they use it.
Now, Lynton, the thing that surprised me the most with your SnapSlip journey, you did incredible things with SnapSlip. I mean, I've seen the videos of you having a chat with Her Royal Highness Meghan Markle. The thing that amazed me most was your ability to almost put it to the side and focus on DOPS, and once you find a new idea, run with it. So my question is DOPS the one, or is it a case of, if you find something better, because it seems like you're always thinking about what's out there and what potential there could be in the market. But is DOPS the one, or will you potentially jump to something else if you think of something better?
My envision is to have this whole portfolio of startups that eventually mature to really successful companies, and have quite a few of them, but have them at a mature state where I can move on to the next one. It was a bit unfortunate. I think SnapSlip was slapdash in the middle of COVID, and it sort of just hindered our plan. But we definitely still are on that journey, and we're trying to get it started again. But it's definitely having that whole portfolio of startups, mature companies under my belt, to say, okay, I did this, but I'm also changing an aspect of someone's life and enriching it and making an element more exciting.
And I mean, I can completely see how a SnapSlip and a DOPS live in the same stable, right?
Absolutely.
I think they flow seamlessly from one to the next.
But
Tell me,
with saying that, I think SnapSlip opened a lot of doors, a lot of opportunities. It put me in places that I don't think I would ever have imagined. I think, as you mentioned, the meeting with Meghan Markle, or the former Duchess of something, Sussex. That's it. It was strange, if I may share. Is I got the invitation, and it said, you're invited to meet the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and I never, I knew who they were, but I didn't know the title that they held. It never resonated with me, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Maybe I'll go. I'll see what I'm doing of the day. And I spoke to my mom about it. I was like, and my girlfriend, who's now my fiance at the time, about it. And I was speaking to them about it, and I says, yeah, I got this invitation to meet the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And they're like, do you know who that is? Like, no, I may go. I may not go. I'll see how I'm feeling. And they're like, do you know who that is? And I'm like, no. They're like, just Google it. And I Googled it, and I'm like, what? Wait, hold on. These the people I'm going to meet? And they're like, yeah, these are the people you're going to meet. And I was like, okay, let me start taking this a bit more seriously. Let me send that RSVP right now.
I'm so excited to meet Rachel from Suits.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the day before, I got this email and this phone call to say, listen, this is the do's and don'ts. And then I was like, okay, wait, hold on. This is serious, because I thought, the invitation said, you have the opportunity to see them, in the sort of counselors, UK consulates house in Cape Town. They're having this sort of meet and greet, but you'll have this opportunity to see them. And the day before, they're like, listen, you're actually going to speak to them. And I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to speak to them? And they're like, no, you got to speak to them about SnapSlip. I was like, okay, cool. And then they sent me this whole do's and don'ts list. So, you can't go and ask for a selfie. You've got to address them as this tone. But meeting them, they're super humble, absolutely amazing people. But it was one of the highlights, I think, in my life to actually share the SnapSlip journey or my journey with them, and for them to actually be so interested in it. So it was incredible.
I mean, it's something that people dream of, right? Just to have a glance of the royal family, to actually sit and meet with them is something incredible. And then, if I had to take you back 15, 20 years and showed you a receipt and said, this is what would put you in front of the royal family, I'm sure you'd have slapped me and been like, what are you talking about?
No, I definitely be like, oh, get out of here, man.
No,
what are you smoking?
And were you nervous standing in front of royalty? I've always heard, people always say when they meet celebrities and stuff like that, they're like, no, but you're just a person. Actually, you're doing all the same things, but in the moments leading up to it, it's quite an overwhelming thing. Was that one of the most nervy moments of your life?
It was, because I was like, please don't say the wrong title. Don't call her the Duchess of Essex or the Duchess of something that she's not. And I was definitely nervous when she approached me. I think one of the coolest things that I remember from that whole sort of conversation was when I told her, listen, I'm the founder of SnapSlip, and she was like, can you say SnapSlip 5 times fast? It's a bit of a tongue twister. And I was like, okay, cool. that's funny. And it sort of just eased the conversation. And you actually see that they are human, first and foremost. And being a big Suits fan, you have her standing in front of you, but she's in this sort of royal capacity. But knowing that the conversation was like a conversation that you and I are having, like, person to person, really chilled, really flowing. And it wasn't, after the first initial greeting, it wasn't, it was just me and her. It was just person to person. It wasn't, you're talking to someone of royalty. I think the nerves went out the window there, and I was just running straight off adrenaline.
And you're also a Suits fan.
I definitely am. Yeah.
Did you ask if she's still disappointed that she didn't make it into Harvard Law School?
Actually, we weren't allowed to. It was one of the do's and don'ts. Do not mention anything related to Suits.
That is hilarious. Which means, how many people must have asked her while she was in I guess, a royal capacity about Suits. No, it's funny, right? So when I was in university, Barack Obama came. I don't know if you remember. He came to South Africa, and he gave an address at UCT. So we managed to get tickets, and I'm actually, if you go to the YouTube video, I'm standing behind him. But it's actually surreal how everything you see in the movies sort of happens in real life. So, I mean, he descended from his, I guess, his presidential chopper. There were snipers on the roof. We all had to go through metal detectors. We're like, man, none of us are going to try and do anything to Barack Obama. We'll be dead before we can even lift our hand up. It was unreal, right? And it was really a cool moment. But I got through because I just managed to get a ticket, right, through a draw. You got through there through, your own perseverance and hard work, which is absolutely incredible. And through all of this, so I know you've mentioned your father and your grandfather play a big part in your journey, and how you've become this entrepreneurial self-starter. But what gives you your energy also is, you've mentioned it's not the money, it's not the flashy lifestyle, anything like that. Where do you get this energy and draw the inspiration from on a day-to-day level? Is it the idea of just creating something epic?
Yeah, it's creating something cool. Like, it's super exciting when you have an idea and you're trying to bring it to fruition, or bring it into the light of everyone else and commercializing it. I think it's that excitement of building out that project. Although DOPS is at a mature state and we have our core foundation, it's how do we make it better? And that's what gets you excited. It gets me super excited and gets me out of bed in the morning is, what's the next big thing for DOPS? How do we take what we have, but sort of make it relevant and fit in with the time. So, for instance, the NFT aspect of it, and it's really exploring that new emerging technology that no one's heard of yet, and that sounds completely ludicrous. But how do you augment what you currently have to fit in with that to stay relevant? I think that's one of the biggest things in the tech space is you literally have 15 seconds of fame and then it's done. Then everyone moves on to the next thing. And how do you build something that, one, is sustainable, but two, that's relevant? And I think that's what gets me really excited and gets me out of bed in the morning is, okay, cool. How do we validate? Because I have this book and it has hundreds and hundreds of ideas, but I promise you, some of them are utter nonsense. But it's how do you validate that idea and how do you keep it relevant?
And the thing that gives me a lot of confidence and excitement talking to you is you seem to have nailed it. This thing of the validation process that you go through is not long; it's quick. So if you have a good idea, you'll know practically whether it can work quite soon thereafter, which I think is something really commendable. And I think it's a good showing that the excuse of I have a day job just doesn't cut it, right? It's been my excuse for the longest time, and I was just trying to start a podcast. I mean, you started a whole bloody business whilst whilst working full time, so that's incredible. And now, as we go back into DOPS and looking into the future, what are some of the critical elements you need to get right, or you foresee you need to get right to build out the things you've mentioned?
I think it's like you said, is also focus. I'm often someone that's like, gets an idea, wants to run with it, then see something new, gets another idea from that, wants to run with that. It's how do you focus on something and not jump around a lot? And I think initially I jumped around quite a lot and then realized actually you're not really creating value. You're just creating small pockets of emptiness because you're not spending the time in there or honing down on that sort of characteristic of that idea. And it's focus for me. It's trying to, and I'm not saying it's a bad trait because I think it's fantastic, and I hope these ideas of mine never stop at any stage of my life. I hope I still think of ideas when I'm 80 years old. But I think it's that focus of honing in on something, making it a success, and getting into a mature state before you move on to the next thing.
And so are you someone who gets bored easily, right? And you find more joy in the crafting of an idea than necessarily the execution? And I'm asking you this because that's firmly where I sit. I'll have hundreds of ideas. We'll start, maybe have one or two successful iterations and be like, okay, cool. That's me done. Let's get to the next thing. And doing it alone is very tough because there's no one to hold you accountable. I'm sure this is where you see, if you are that way, I'm sure this is where you see the value of having a team around you.
No, absolutely. I think to that point, I started off being that person. I just call myself the Blitz because you start the flame, you'd ignite the flame, and then you just be like, okay, cool, cheers, handle it, guys. But I think that's where the strength lies within the team, is that you have someone that starts the initial idea or innovation, and then someone who's able to execute. I think the biggest thing is actually execution. Everyone can have an idea, but it's how do you execute on that idea? I think that's the most critical part. And I've actually learned how to be a better executioner, if I may say that, but how to actually focus more on the execution than the idea. Because you could have an idea that's remotely good, and you can have an idea that's amazing, but if the execution on that idea that's amazing is not good, and the execution on the idea that's not so amazing is excellent, you'd actually have a better commercial deliverance of the product with the idea that's not so good, but the excellent execution. So it's definitely playing off the strengths of your team, knowing where the strengths lie, and feeding off that energy.
No, I think that's very, very useful advice to anyone trying to get going. And do you have any other points of advice for people trying to be like you, trying to build something from scratch, what would you say to them?
The best time is yesterday. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity or moment. The best time for you to start was yesterday or 24 hours ago. So just do it. Just do it. Even if it means you taking 2 hours of your day for a week, just do it. Flesh it out. Validate. Get it going. Because the worst idea is the one that never materialized. So there's no such thing as a bad idea.
That's profound. I think you're 100% spot on. Now, I have one or two more questions about Dop. How big is the team? Is it currently still you and your two co-founders? Has it expanded? What's your expansion plans from that perspective? And are you guys currently completely self-funded, or have you taken funding on? Are you looking for funding into the future? What's the plans from a growth perspective?
So currently it's a team of 6, so 3 co-founders and 3 sort of employees, if I may say. But it's we more think of ourselves as a family than any sort of corporate structure, and I think that's quite cool because it's tech based. It's not human capital intensive. The platforms run on their own. They do what they need to do. So it's merely not having this massive team of 50 people, at the wheel trying to turn it, but it's more the wheel's turning. We just need a few hands to sort of guide that wheel and show the wheel where to go if it does get lost. In terms of funding, we've been completely bootstrapped. So when we came out with the idea, we thought maybe we would need funding. I think the cards fell in the right way that allowed us to self-fund with the clients that we had and being able to deliver on those invoices and use that to sort of propel us to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. Funding for the future, definitely something we're interested in, definitely something we want to explore. I guess it's just a timing thing for us. But yes, we definitely want to take funding because that will accelerate our growth into the next 3-4 years faster than we could do ourselves. But it's just finding the right funder. I think one thing that people sort of often neglect is, I've got my product out there, I've got my idea out there, it's working, it's commercialized, I've got some reception from clients, I've created a bit of a sustainable product, let me just get funding. I don't think it's that easy. I think funding is almost like dating. You've got to find the right match. And yes, you're going to kiss a few frogs along the way. But if you rush into something, I promise you it's going to be an ugly divorce between you and your funder. And they often have the higher ground to you. So it's really, if you don't need it, don't take it right away. Sort of explore it. Go on a couple of dates, see who's the right funder for you. Gel with that funding house or angel investor or investor. Gel with them. Make sure that what your goals are aligned to what their goals and strategy is. Because the last thing you want is someone coming in there and dictating the terms to you and really stripping out what value that you think you'd add and really trying to institutionalize what you have.
I see the blitz can take his foot off the gas.
Absolutely.
and have a look around first before making a decision. And Lynton, I think another important question for people who want to go into this, it's not an easy one. So you guys left jobs at Absa, right? Which is a very nice place to be, a comfortable place to be. Have you guys managed to now, earn a living off the business? Are you guys still running off savings? What's the practicality in terms of how you guys live day to day as self-starters?
No, absolutely. We definitely are able to earn a living off the business. It's not glamorous. It's not as glamorous as the Absa days. So we're not going out and popping champagne bottles every week. I think it's the total opposite of that. But it's that self-fulfillment and self-empowerment, that knowing that you're actually doing something that directly and 100% proportionally benefits you as an individual and you as the employee in the situation. And you can guide your sort of journey through that. Yes, like we always said, the money will come in due time. It's how do we create something of value and something that we can be proud of and leave a legacy behind us and empower people to join this journey with us.
And it sounds very cliche, but the truth is there's some things that really money just cannot buy, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a sense of joy, and it's a different kind of stress, I imagine. There's one stress when you're doing it for a corporate and for a boss, but there's another kind of stress when it's for your business or your baby that you're building from scratch. It makes it just that much more enjoyable. And yeah, I guess it's, even though it's probably more stressful, you also feel lighter as a person.
It's what I termed as constructive and destructive stress. I think when I was working for someone, it was destructive stress, because you're pushing to meet a deadline. You're super stressed. You have this added pressure that someone's going to shout at you, or you're going to get into some sort of trouble. But this is more constructive stress. Yes, you've got a deadline. Yes, you've got to deliver for a client, but you're at the wheel. You're driving the ship, so it's 100% on you, which is daunting. But you make the decisions at the end of the day, which is really cool. And I think that's the element of constructiveness to that stress. And stress is good; keeps you honest.
Yeah. Unless you me, I don't know if you can see, I've gone so gray.
No, me as well. But it's good. It gives you a sense of maturity as well.
I definitely appear wiser, wiser than I am. Now, Lynton, last question, and it's a two-parter, and it goes back to you, right? So the first thing I have, and I ask all my guests this. So the first thing is, are you proud of yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you told me I was going to be on this journey, call it 15 years ago, back in high school, you and I sitting at a lunch break, and you told me this is what's going to become of you, I would say you are absolutely crazy. It wasn't easy to sort of get to where I am, and I think I still got a hell of a long way to go, but I'm very proud of what I've been able to do in this space of time.
No, and I think as you should be. And then the last part of that question is, if you were somehow standing in front of 6-year-old Lynton, what about your journey would you tell him he should look forward to the most?
Take the chance. Because I think I was hesitant. I was very, very hesitant. I delayed it for about 2 years before I actually pulled the plug. And looking back at it, it's not something I'm upset about. But I always think, what if I did it 2 years earlier? Where would I be, sitting now if this was 2 years earlier? And I tell him, because my personality pre to where I am right now was always very hesitant and scared of taking that leap. And 6-year-old me is probably the bravest stage I would have been in my life. I tell myself, take the chance. And I tell anyone out there, take the chance. So what if you fail? It's part of the journey. It's actually better if you fail. It teaches you a hell of a lot more. So take that chance, take that step, take that leap. And the best time to do it was yesterday.
No, I think great wisdom there at the end, and it's a case of, I find you're so right about the 6-year-old you, the young you is probably the most courageous you'd have been, and you go through this period of flux, in your teenage years, in your 20s, and I've seen, and a lot of studies suggest that some of your happiest years are in your 30s, where you sort of stabilize and figure out who you are. And I can feel that almost coming. It's almost that reversion back to a level of confidence I hadn't experienced over the last 20 odd years. As you're more worried about what other people think and everything else, you sort of settle on who you are. So I think a great lesson for everyone to just be confident, don't fear rejection, take the chance. Because as you say, you should have started yesterday.
Yeah.
Lynton, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think you are the definition of a self-starter and then some. You've started so many different things. And, as someone who and people won't know this, but as someone who went to high school with you and having seen your journey, I'm very excited to see what's to come next. I have no doubt that you're going to be a multi-millionaire with all your ideas and the way things are going. And I would truly wish you nothing but the best. Please exceed those expectations and become a multi-billionaire. That would be even better. And then we'll have a follow-up conversation, and I can tell everyone they heard it here first. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your learnings. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what the future holds for you and Dops.